Hello everyone, Quincy Cat here. This week we have another Twins tips video for you covering sort of like the basics, trying to get people into playing Twins and understanding how they work. Last week we discussed the bare mechanics, just how to use Victor, how to jump through windows, stuff like that. This week we're going to discuss tactics. We're going to discuss how to start the game early on, we're going to dive into slugging a little bit, and how I like to unbind and use Victor in chase. Really hope you all enjoy this one, so let's go ahead and dig in. Before we get into builds or anything like that, let's talk just simple tactics with Twins. A lot of people will say the first thing you want to do with Twins when you spawn into a map, they will often say you want to run Corrupt Intervention. In this case, I feel like Corrupt Intervention's kind of failed us. But they'll say you want to go to a center of a map, deploy Victor, and go hunt. Go try to find people. Now, I think if you have solid game sense and you have a lot of hours in Dead by Daylight, I think this makes a lot of sense. You're going to know where survivors are, you're going to know where they might hide. But if you're slightly newer, or if you have trouble tracking, you're going to find that you can't see scratch marks with Victor. And that can make things kind of miserable. This is a bot, so they're pretty easy to track, obviously. But if it's a real survivor, they're going to be able to use loops against you very well and use line of sight breakers to just completely disappear. We can track this Leon here, and we'll be able to get him, of course. And you usually can, but sometimes you're going to find games where you just run around aimlessly, you get frustrated, and you can't find anyone, they're somehow ducking you, you don't know what's going on, and now you're in this spot where like Victor might be off in a whole weird corner where no one's at. Let's check this last gen over here, right? Our corrupt interventions ran out. We're going over here. There's got to be someone over here, right? But then there isn't. Then you make the mistake of switching back to Charlotte. Now Victor's off in a terrible corner, Charlotte's over here, no one's on this gen, and we've also lost a generator already. So we're in a really bad spot. Corrupt Intervention now is actually just about up at this point. We don't have a down, we don't even have a solid injury. Obviously I could have gotten one earlier, but for the sake of this conversation here and this tutorial, we don't have an injury yet, and it's a really stressful spot. The thing that's so important with Twins is that you don't have a lot of time. You can always snowball a game and flip things into your favor, but if you can't get that snowball going, you're running out of time quickly. Gens are flying, and people can heal up and take away your pressure very quickly. So I prefer a different way of approaching this, and we'll tackle that next. Now the safer way that I prefer to start off with is running a perk like Lethal Pursuer. You could also run Discordance, something that's going to give you early information on where survivors are. So we know we have 2 over there, we have 2 over here. We can start leveraging this to our advantage immediately. And instead of deploying Victor, we're going to go ahead and head out with Charlotte instead. Yeah, sure, Victor would get here faster, but we can also come down here and make sure we can get some pressure on these folks. And if we can get an easy hit on somebody, like this Elodie here, who's a bot, so pretty easy to hit, we get a free hit on her, and if she finds her way back to a loop somewhere, well then, okay, now we deploy Victor, now we can do something. But in this case, we don't need to. We go ahead and we down her. We got a free down. This will happen sometimes in DBD. Not everyone's a bot, of course, but now we can go off, we can go hunting a little bit further if we want to. We can chase this Ada away, push her off of a gen, because we already knew where 4 people were. We knew someone else had to be in this general vicinity thanks to Lethal Pursuer. Discordance will give you similar value, obviously, too. You'll know where 2 people are if they hop on a gen together. That can be incredibly valuable. So I find this is a lot safer way to start off the game. Now we have a hit on someone else. We have someone else on a hook. We have pressure. We have scratch hooks. We know scratch marks rather. We know where Leon's at. We know Ada's probably back over here in this corner. So there's one person we're not totally sure on, but we have a pretty good idea where everything's at, and we have immediate pressure. Nobody is really able to work on a gen right now. Adam or Leon have to go for the save, but we saw Leon wasn't on a gen, and this Ada's about to go down and cause more problems for the team. So I find, again, that with Twins, like, you're always working against the clock. You have to move quickly, as fast as you possibly can a lot of times, which leads to the slugging and stuff like that, of course. But try to minimize that when we can. We have time right now. We're at 5 gens. We can go ahead and pick this Ada up. Not a big deal. And keep using this pressure to keep the survivors off of the gens. Now they have to come all the way to the other side of the map. Something that we can also do thanks to our high mobility with Twins. We get all the way across the map with Victor. And set up more pressure over here. And now we're in a spot where we don't quite know where everyone's at. We We have Victor in a somewhat bad spot. So this is where I would like to move him if I can. And we can use Charlotte here as a compass, basically. An idea of like where she's at tells us where we need to head next. She's keeping a pressure on that generator over there. We can find our way over here. We found ourselves to Elodie already, who's trying to get to the center of the map. Now we can kind of start cutting the map in half. And a lot of maps will lend itself to this sort of playstyle where now we have 8 on one side. We can keep people over there, keep some other folks over here. We know where everyone's at. We can kind of play in 2 places at once because we're twins. But as you saw, like that was a much quicker start to the game, and it's more consistent. So if you're newer to playing twins, or if you're newer to Dead by Daylight in general, and you have trouble finding survivors, give yourself some free info early on. If at all possible, get Lethal Pursuer. It's useful in every single killer in this game. And otherwise, like I said, Discordance is another super useful early info perk, so you can get that pressure going immediately, and it's going to really lend itself to you further in the game as the game progresses. Like, you're going to lose generators with twins, it's going to happen, but the more you can get that pressure early on, the more that you're going to be fine later on. Now that we've covered how I like to start a game, let's talk about how I like to deploy Victor and leverage him best in chase. I prefer the general strategy of going with a basic attack first and then working into leveraging his power. This gives us 2 main advantages. One, Victor's really, really good in chase. He's very efficient at getting downs. He's much faster than them. Secondarily, it helps us prevent survivors keeping Victor. They can't hold on to him if we get it down, right? So, Leon, if I can go ahead and chase you. Thank you. I'm gonna give Leon here a little chase. We're going to try to get ourselves a basic attack in. And then we're going to go over here to this tile, because of course survivors are going to try to run for some safety. And this is where I like to deploy Victor in these usual instances, because it'll help us keep the survivor close to us in the event that we get them down. That way we don't have to slug if we don't want to. Also, we don't have a situation where Victor and Charlotte get incredibly spread out. When they get spread out, that's when we start having problems, when we have to start slugging more, when unbreakables start to hurt us, stuff like that. Instead, we want to leverage Victor, get ourselves a down. Now we have a down, we have 2 choices here, right? We can go ahead and switch back to Charlotte, we can hook him, that makes a lot of sense, but what I prefer to do is try to get Victor on someone else as quick as possible. Now, obviously, they could choose to keep Victor, but they can only keep him for 30 seconds. And I'm getting an injury out of this deal anyway, and now I can go throw Leon on the hook too. So, this is a pretty fair trade for me. The person that was maybe coming for a save or to come help out Leon is now injured. They've also returned Victor to me because they probably want to get back to a gen or do something useful for their team. So, they've given me Victor back. I have him redeployable. Instead of him just being stuck over there in the tile, he's now back in a situation where I can leverage him, and I can go start a new chase with someone else and move on with life and keep creating pressure on other gens. So this is why I try to stick with this pattern of basic attack, then a Victor down. Now I have 2 people injured, and now I could potentially go find a 3rd injury over here. I'm leveraging some nurses calling here. So now we can go hit Ada, then we have 3 people injured. Slowly but surely, as this happens, we're setting up a snowball. We're setting up a chance to get multiple people down and to potentially win the game in a hurry if everything pans out just right for us. So usually survivors will do stuff like healing, of course, but in the event that they don't, you're in a really good spot. And if they do heal, well, at least they're not doing generators at that point. So now we have the other scenario I was talking about, though, where we've gone out here, we've got Ada down, we're way back here in the corner, and now Victor is also way back here in the corner. This can be a little bit problematic. We kind of want to shift Victor out of this spot and get him to someplace more useful, or if at all possible, we'd love to just have him completely back to us. Yeah, you could argue that he's kind of camping the hook for us and that that's valuable to some degree, but I don't really find it that useful. We can injure someone, but they're going to get away, right? They're going to still get the unhook. You can unhook with Victor. It's not that big of a deal. They might even end up kicking him, and honestly, that would be somewhat helpful for us. But otherwise, we can park Charlotte for a moment, switch over to Victor. We'll ignore these survivors for a minute, and we can talk about the idea of using Charlotte as information. This is another thing that will be incredibly useful as you're in chase Charlotte and Victor are both always visible through any sort of wall. Got Aura reading on them. So you can see them perfectly clearly. This can be really helpful when it's like, hey, we know there are some survivors back there. Who get Killer Instinct in this case, because the bots cannot resist kicking Victor. But if you know some survivors are back there, you can park Victor somewhere useful, walk in that direction. Sometimes it can be really disorientating, switching back and forth between Charlotte and Victor, especially when it's a crushing scenario. It can be a little confusing. Hey, Leon, you mind kicking me? But having some idea of where you last saw Charlotte can really help to know, like, oh, okay, that's the direction I need to run. Sometimes I kind of like to think about when I'm running around with Victor, I like to imagine sort of a string kind of attaching the two of us, so that I can always kind of remember if I do get kicked, sort of where I have to go back to. I don't know, it's a weird visual that helps me as I go around a map, but may not help you. Something to keep in mind. It's very difficult to talk about the twins without at some point discussing the situation of slugging, right? It's okay, he's a bot, he's gonna be fine, I promise. Now twins, they slug for a variety of reasons, but the most common reason generally is you've deployed Victor, you've gotten taken on a really long chase by a Leon that's just too good, so you just keep running and running and running. Now you finally find him, you get your chance, I've downed Leon, but Charlotte's over there. And wait, that Adam's back up? What the heck? Well, hold on. Can I stop this Adam? And now you go over here, you try to stop the Adam, but wait, Elodie's over here? Because of course she picked him up. And this is how it all sort of starts snowballing out of control. There'll be times you're playing as twins where you didn't even mean for this to actually happen. It was just like, hey, I was just trying to get that Leon down real quick, and then I was gonna try to come hook him and hook Adam. I just wanted my 2 downs. And a lot of times you'll find that you get another free hit somewhere along the way, because that Adam died along a wall. So that Elodie found herself in a really bad position. Now we have to go pick up Leon. We have some Killer Instinct over there, so like we know it's just Leon, but now we know someone else is over there too. We missed our shot. We're a little silly sometimes. It's alright, it happens. So now we've got Elodie injured. We're gonna run over here. There's a really good chance that she just runs straight into us. Who knows? Bots do some incredibly strange things sometimes. So this is roughly, though, how you see slugging happen with twins, is they end up getting split up. They have their people far apart. They're just trying to get the downs, and then opportunities arise. Now you have 2 people injured. Ada's probably going to be heal one of them. Nope, here's Elodie. She shows up right on cue. We can go chase her away. Adam and Ada both have self-care, so who knows what they're doing. But this is, sure enough, there's Adam. But this is why a lot of times you find yourself slugging, is once again, we are so far away from her, and now Adam's there. And like, you want to stop, you want to get that pickup, you want Adam to go away, so you find yourself chasing Adam now. And now Elodie, still unfortunately, slugged on that ground. No matter how you explain this to Elodie, if she ends up spending a minute of this game on the ground, she's going to be deeply upset about this. And I get it, it's not the most fun way to play the game, but part of this is we have like 8 seconds just to switch between the characters sometimes. So, inevitably, we do have to leave people slugged. We can obviously hook Elodie here, but the other thing you have to consider is that essentially the twins work exactly like Oni. If you have multiple people injured, you have the ability to go and get very quick downs on multiple people at once. Like, it works exactly the same as Oni, charging up his power by getting injuries. We have the same thing here, where once again, we can go with multiple people injured out there, leverage our power, and we would never fault Oni for doing such a thing. We'd probably fault Oni for doing such a thing, but it looks a lot cooler when he does the whole, you know, bonky on the head thing, so I don't know. We kind of get over it. That aside, though, why should you slug is perhaps a question we could entertain here. And most often it's because things can flip on its head so fast for you. All it takes is an unbreakable and a made for this, maybe some flip-flop buckle up, and your life can completely turn around on you. The unfortunate side effect is that you play like this sometimes, and the survivors don't have any of those things, and the game completely steamrolls in your favor. So I prefer, personally, if you're out there playing twins, try to be nice to people. Understand they're also playing the game and trying to have fun out there. And don't slug it all out at 5 gens if you don't have to. Sometimes the situation's going to arise and you'll have the opportunity. But early game, if you can get your hooks, please take your hooks rather than slugging it all out at 5 gens. A lot of times it's going to backfire on you anyway. So, you know, you probably are using a perk like Pop or Pain Res in most of your builds. You're going to need those hooks occasionally. So get those early hooks in. And then as the game drags on, go ahead and leverage this power if you have to. It's going to be as the game drags on that you have the ability to have multiple injured survivors. As you get down to 2 gens remaining, maybe 1 gen remaining, survivors are going to be a lot less interested in healing. They're going to be a lot more interested in trying to break your 3 gen, just trying to get the gens completed so they can get the heck out. So that's going to create the opportunity for you to get Victor out and cause the mayhem that we've caused here. And also, be very, very careful of Deliverance in these situations. Deliverance will often completely unravel a slugged situation like this. All it takes is someone popping Deliverance while you're hooking someone else, and now they can go pick up downed survivors. So, as you do slug out in games, try to remember who did the unhooking in that game. Will sometimes become very helpful. Thank you all for joining us on another edition of Twins Tips. Next week, we're going to dive into our full-on add-ons tier list, and we're also going to discuss my 5 favorite builds and the most useful builds that I find for twins. So I hope you all join us for that, and as always, please let us know in the comments if you'd like to see anything in particular. We have advanced techniques coming up soon too, so lots more stuff to come, so hope you all enjoy. Take care. See you next time.